Peace and love and welcome back to Author Breakdowns with me, Ray Stone. We're talking about, of course, products of our environment. Now, we're already 2 breakdowns in and we haven't talked about products at all. Of course, the book is about the products that we use, the cosmetics, the household cleansers, etc., and the dangers inside of them. So it talks about all of that, but it also talks about a lot of other topics. So I want to focus on maybe some of the ones that you might not expect. This one you might not expect, or you might not like that much, some of you, but that is astrology. That's right, and I can hear the moan through the camera, but before you moan or dismiss astrology, I know a lot of people say, oh no, I don't believe in astrology, and I understand that sentiment, but what we approach it in products of our environment, I think is interesting, and I think is definitely worth exploring. And I consider it to a product of our environment that maybe we don't use or utilize as much as we could. Like we should be starting projects on a new moon. And when there's a waning moon, then we should be focused on letting go of things we want to let go of. These are little patterns that the universe has that if we follow them, it can be a guide to us. I think the one thing that we can all agree is that the full moon has a tangible effect on us here on Earth, right? If you want to explore some ways how, well, doctors won't schedule an elective surgery during a full moon because the blood levels are always higher. So there's more water, attracts more water. There's high tide in the oceans and lakes and stuff like that. So there's more water and more circulation during the full moon. This thing as a planting moon and a harvest moon. So these are also patterns that are put in use by farmers and the farming industry and things like that. So the full moon definitely has a tangible effect on us here on Earth, okay? Some people still say, whatever I said is hogwash, and they still don't believe in astrology, especially my Christian listeners. But here's the interesting fact for the Christian listeners, and that is Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday. This is one of the biggest holidays. This is where you dress the freshest, right? This is when you put your outfit on for Easter Sunday. But why is Easter Sunday changed so drastically? Sometimes it's in March, right? It's in late March. Sometimes it's in early April. Sometimes it's in late April. So it changes drastically. And why does it change so much? What is that? What is the determining factor? And guess what it is? You won't believe it, but it's that same full moon coming back full circle, right? The full moon is the reason that Easter Sunday changes, because Easter Sunday always will fall on the first Sunday after the first full moon that comes after the spring equinox. I guess you say, what is the spring equinox? For those that don't know, the spring equinox is equinox, let's spell it. The spring equinox happens about March 21st, right around March 21st or so. And it is the day when everything is equal. That means there's 12 hours a day and there's 12 hours of darkness. So at that day, everything is equal. And after that, the days will get longer and longer and longer. Okay. So that's the spring equinox. So the spring equinox, March 21st. So the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the spring equinox, is when Easter Sunday will be. So you see, Easter Sunday is totally depending on the full moon and the spring equinox, which is astrology. So a lot of people insist that church and religion are not tied together, but if you look at this Easter Sunday, you would have to beg to differ. At least you would have to do some thinking about that thought, right? Okay, so there's that. Some people even say that the Bible, you all, like when they have to go and take over the golden bull, that was the end of Taurus, the bull, and they brought in a ram's horn, which is the next sign, which is Aries. So some people even suggest that the Bible is kind of allegory that comes from zodiac. Even some say Jesus, the sun, with the 12 disciples, the 12 signs as it moves through the 12 signs of the zodiac. And a lot of times you'll see Jesus with the sun around his head and depicted with the sun around his head, right? So just some things that I've heard and read and explored. So just some thoughts to think about. Who knows, right? Okay, so getting back to our full moon. Let's come back. I keep erasing full moon and writing it again. I'm leaving it up here this time. Full moon. To say that there's a full moon tonight, hey, did you see the moon? There's a full moon tonight. It's beautiful. That's a very incomplete statement. It's totally incomplete. Please stop saying that. It's a full moon in what? In what sign? That's very important. Why is it important? Because each sign carries a different energy with it, right? So just like the sign Virgo, let's say, if there's a Virgo full moon, that's a time when we're paying attention to details. They say when it's a Virgo moon, it's a good time to go grocery shopping because you'll be paying attention to details. You won't make frivolous mistakes. You're more focused on details and health and things like that. So the full moon in Virgo, then you want to do things that align with that energy. If there's a full moon in Scorpio, there's a passionate energy. If there's a full moon in Pisces, maybe there's a frivolous energy or spiritual energy. So you want to do things that align with the energy that is being cast out by that full moon, right? We know that it has energy because it affects the waters and everything else. So why not align ourselves with that energy? Because it's like, to me, you all, like, it's like teaching a kid how to swing, right? If you kick at the right time and pull at the right time, you start going higher and higher. So I think this can be the same thing for us in our lives. If we can learn to work with these patterns, we can gain the momentum of the universe and be in the right place at the right time, because the universe is thrusting us higher and higher as we're following the patterns. But I think we're taught not to follow the patterns or to respect the patterns. And therefore, maybe not all of us aren't finding our way. How many people never find their way or when I say find your way, I mean find a way to your true purpose, because we all have a purpose. We were all born for a purpose. All right. Everybody remember that as you're listening to this video and reading this book, this dope book, Products of Our Environment. Okay, so I talk about aligning with the energy. I feel like I'm leaving something out, but I hope you get a good idea of what I'm talking about, at least the approach that I want you to take towards astrology, and maybe shift your views on your perspective a little bit, because it's more tangible than we might realize. I did leave out something. In fact, talking about how tangible it is, two things. In Washington, D.C., there's a National Academy of Science. The National Academy of Science, right? In Washington, D.C. Outside of the academy, there's a huge statue of Einstein. In the statue, Einstein is actually reading the zodiac chart from the date of the inception or opening of the academy. So that's how important at that time astrology was, that Einstein was actually reading the zodiac chart, like in the morning, reading the zodiac chart from the morning of the day that they opened this museum. That shows you something, how important astrology is to science. I'm thinking most times, most schedules, most seasons are based on astrological events. So it's more important than we're led to believe. I think that we think of it as the horoscope at the back of the newspaper or whatever, at the back of magazines, but it's much more than that. And I think that we have to respect it more because it's so ancient and it's been around for so long. How could it live for this long if it was just, it's been around a long. And now we're going to tie in another concept that we talked about, and that is etymology. Remember, we talked about etymology. If you didn't see the etymology video, please go check it out. Products of Our Environment. It's a dope book. Get the book. Y'all should have this book. You see, the book is dope by now. Okay, but the etymology of the word consider. Remember, I talked about the statue outside of the National Academy of Science. And it's not only that. In D.C., there's like over 28 statues or buildings that have the zodiac chart within it. So that just tells you how important it is in the building of the nation's capital. Okay, so the etymology of the word consider actually means to consult with the stars or something like that. With the stars, to consult with the stars or to examine the stars. So that's what consider actually meant. When the word first came, that's what it actually meant. Of course, etymology is a study of the history of words. You know that if you saw the first video, but consider, it was to consult with the stars. So that's what consider actually meant. Of course, we know what consider means today is to think something over. I'm considering going, but I might move or I might not. I'm considering it. Well, consider before meant to consult with the stars, to study the stars, and maybe know what energies are going and align whatever you're doing along with those stars. Okay, so that's what the word consider actually meant. That's powerful. It shows you how much, and I should know what years that's from. I'm going to look it up. Maybe I'll put it on a video. But that shows how important astrology and the stars were to the decision making at that time, right? And just to leave you with this, because you still might have heard all of this I said, and you still say, well, I still think it's some bullshit. Well, maybe you do think that way, but consider this. There's a quote by J.P. Morgan at the end of this section. In Products of Our Environment, you know J.P. Morgan, Bank, Chase Bank, all of that big red, right, billionaire money. He left a quote. He said a quote that I put in the book. It says, quote unquote, millionaires don't use astrology, period. Billionaires do. Okay, that's what J.P. Morgan said. So that gives you an idea that this is really some next level very, very powerful energy, and it's even more than we can maybe fathom at the time, right? So that billionaire stuff, a lot of people won't hear that. You still might dismiss it, but some people hear me and maybe want to start tapping into it a little bit, right? So just some things to think about, but you should definitely think about checking out that book, Products of Our Environment, available right now at raystonebooks.com. Peace.